Good morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you choose to watch this, since it is a virtual presentation. My name is Taylor Stewart, and I am the Certified Local Government Coordinator for the Alabama Historical Commission. The Alabama Historical Commission is the state preservation office for Alabama, and our offices are located in Montgomery. This is just a little bit more about our office. Like I said, we are located in Montgomery, downtown. If you need to come visit us, we're not currently here, but we will be at some point in the future. We run several programs statewide that foster, protect, preserve, and interpret our built history in this state, as well as foster some heritage tourism. We do own multiple different sites across the state that you guys have probably visited, at least one of them. Those sites are listed on our website, which you can see there at the end. And I'm going to just briefly show you a few of our programs, and then we're going to talk about mine. These are some of the programs we run. We have the Alabama Register of Landmarks and Heritage, the State Rehabilitation Tax Credit Program, the Federal Tax Credit Program, our Historic Markers Program, National Register of Historic Places. I coordinate the Certified Local Government CLG program, and you will likely hear from several of these other programs throughout the rest of this month, as this is Preservation Month, and we are trying to get you guys some more digital offerings. So one, that we are more accessible in general, but two, so that during this weird new normal we have entered, that you guys have access to our information. I'd much rather be giving you this presentation in person instead of talking to a computer who doesn't laugh at my probably bad jokes, but this is where we are, so I'm just going to hope that you're laughing when I make a bad joke at home. Local historic preservation is important for so many reasons. I don't have room to list them all, so I just went with a few on this list. It celebrates your town's history. It preserves the character of your town. It supports our downtown revitalization, and it improves property values. It conserves those existing neighborhoods. And local preservation fosters connectivity, because these original neighborhoods, these downtowns, were built with connectivity in mind. It's a different kind of connectivity than we have now, but it's one we're kind of starting to return to with, reintroduction of walkability, bikeability, and these historic neighborhoods and downtowns are uniquely situated to provide that. Local preservation and local oversight of preservation projects are what continues to give us these things. Think about your hometown. You're probably not going to think about the strip mall out by the interstate. You're probably going to think of Main Street or your courthouse square, or a beautiful neighborhood with a house that you daydream about owning in it. Or that could just be me, but I feel like other people also have house envy sometimes, especially in those historic neighborhoods. And that's all because of local preservation. Another reason historic preservation is important, and local preservation in particular, is because historic preservation is economic development. The information on this slide came from Place Economics, which is a firm headed by Donovan Ripkema, and they have done study after study that shows that these historic districts, or as they call it, old stuff, just in general, older housing stock, older buildings, those give all of those quality of life criteria that people are looking for, more so than new construction. They're more dense than new construction. You can see those stats about Savannah, Georgia. Historic districts comprise 8% of the city's land area, but have 16% of its population and 31% of its jobs. Those are pretty good stats. The reinvestment in these neighborhoods serves as a catalyst for additional investment, and he's done further studies stating that typically historic districts reflect the actual socioeconomic, race, class, breakdowns of a city more than new construction. You will see what a city looks like based on its historic districts. You see the population makeup reflected more closely than you do in those new construction neighborhoods. The property values in historic districts outperform the city as a whole. Small firms and startup firms choose to locate in these more. So there's lots of reasons to focus on preservation. So all of that to say, the Certified Local Government Program is a great program and you should all be a part of it. But I'm not just saying that because it's my program. It was started by the National Park Service, and each state has a Certified Local Government Program. CLGs, or Certified Local Governments, can compete for annual matching grants provided by our office, by the AHC, to assist with preservation planning, documentation, and educational projects. Being part of this program also opens you up to more technical assistance from our office, lots of educational opportunities, and different ways to foster historic preservation in your community. So, what is a CLG? I'm probably going to switch to saying CLG instead of Certified Local Government now because that's a lot of words to repeat over and over and over again. A CLG is a town or city that has decided to provide a local preservation program. You have to enact a special historic preservation ordinance. The ordinance must be in compliance with the state enabling legislation. You have to be able to enforce that ordinance through a local preservation commission. And you have to meet the minimum standards as determined by our office. So if this is something you're interested in, your community might be interested in, my information will be at the end of this presentation. And I always say the best first step is to call or email me so we can see where your town is currently. Because lots of towns already have this preservation ordinance and we can kind of work from there. So what are the benefits of becoming a CLG? We've talked briefly about the grants. We're going to talk about them a little bit more. But at least 10% of our federal appropriation that the state agency gets every year has to go to this CLG grant program. 10%. That's a good chunk. And those go to things like doing surveys, crafting brochures, education. We had to, unfortunately, our national conference this year got canceled because of our current situation. But every other year we have a national conference and CLGs can apply for funding to travel to that conference and get really valuable educational opportunities. Another benefit is that passing that local ordinance allows for communities to have more of a say in what happens at the local level. It allows you to stabilize those historic districts and preserve that community character, because once you create your preservation commission and you go through the proper steps to pass a local district, you get to review changes that are being made in that district to ensure that the property values are kept up and that proper economic investment is being made in those communities. Okay, so the grants, one more time. The matching grants, these are some of the things you can use them for. I talked about the surveys, National Register nominations, new ones, or to update existing ones, because honestly, some of them have not been touched since the late 70s or early 80s, and a lot has happened since then, guys. So it's important that we get those updated. Training for your commissioners, making sure that they are up to date with the latest preservation knowledge, preservation plan development, design guidelines. We also do pre-development studies. If there's, this really important building in your downtown that's been sitting there vacant and you just don't know what to do with it, We offer those matching grants to be able to do a study and figure out what might work in that building. Public awareness and education, we've had some really great ones of those recently. We had Finding Huntsville, which was a children's activity book that helped children understand the local history and architecture around them, and that they live in a community that already has a rich history and a rich built history. So those are just some really cool things you can do with those grants. All right, now the boring stuff. Compliance with state law. There are some things you have to include in your ordinance so that it meets the state enabling code. We have to obey the law in order to do all these things. It goes without saying. But these are just some of the things that you have to make sure that are in there, that the property owner can appeal a decision of the Preservation Commission, that the city is behind you. The city has to provide the enforcement of this law. Public meetings and notices required, of course. Someone on the city staff has to be appointed as a CLG contact. That does not have to be their full-time job. It can be part of their duties. It's typically done within the planning department, but we just have to have someone that I can contact when questions come up, or if I have funding opportunities or educational opportunities. You have to submit an annual report on the AHC form that I send out every year. You have to meet the annual training requirements, and you have to submit your meeting minutes or have them accessible. Okay, so once you've enacted your ordinance, once you have your local commission, how do you create a local historic district? So you have to survey the area and define the boundaries, and you can do that through one of our AHC matching grants. You have to hold meetings to educate the community on the significance and let the community know what you're doing, so you're not just, they don't feel like it's been snuck on them. We'll identify all those character defining features, and you'll develop those local design guidelines, and that comes after the survey. That's a separate thing you can apply for a grant for as well. You gather that public input when you have those meetings, and come up with ways that the community can have that input. You may do a survey, you may have a big meeting, hold that official public meeting and follow the local public notice requirements, and then you pass your resolution to request the local designation, and then you officially request the City Council to designate the area. Now, local designation does not mean that it's on the National Register. A lot of communities do use their National Register boundaries as their local district, but you do not have to. It is often easiest to do that if you already have a National Register district, but it's kind of this isn't a one-size-fits-all. It's more of a choose-your-own-adventure, but during any of these processes, I highly recommend calling our office and making sure that we're going through the steps correctly, because that's what we're here for. We're here to help you navigate these processes, but we are the government bureaucrats, so you don't have to be. Someone's got to do it, so we do it for you. So we have enacted our ordinance, we have surveyed, we have come up with our local district. It has been approved by our city government. Now what do we do? Now you have been notified that you live in this new district because during the survey and local designation process, there were public meetings and you were made aware of them and you attended the meetings, you had your input, all that. So now you live in the local district. You want to do work on the exterior of your house. How do you go about that? You would file for a certificate of appropriateness. Most of the time, if these are minor projects, they can be expedited with city staff approval. If it is, replacing your privacy fence with the exact same kind as before, or replacing your roof with the same type of shingle, those sorts of things would be expedited and approved internally within the city staff. The bigger projects, like an addition, or something like that, removing windows and replacing them with vinyl, something along those lines that alters the exterior, would be reviewed by the local commission members at their meeting. There would be discussion, and they would decide if it meets the design guidelines, if it does not meet the guidelines, if they need more information. And if it does not meet the guidelines, then the property owner can resubmit with some modifications and see where things go from there. But this is what the local district allows for. It allows for the historical commission to make sure that the neighborhood is keeping its character intact, that all of that character that we were talking about and why people choose those historic districts stays relevant and is fostered. So that's kind of the CLG program from start to finish. You get to have your local district, and you get to apply for grants, and get to see and hear a lot from me. And when things are a little more normal, I go visit the CLGs fairly often and talk about projects and things that can be done, and do some education. So hopefully we will be able to see you guys soon. And I'm going to end, my next slide is just a list of all of the certified local governments in our state currently. So these are all of the current Alabama CLGs. If you have questions about being a CLG, you're welcome to call me. If you know someone who lives in one of these communities and might live in a historic district, you might want to talk to them, see how they feel about it. Our newest community is Homewood. They just came on last year, and we're looking forward to growing our CLG community. It's a pretty fun club, and we would love for any of you to be a part of it. So if you think this is something your community might be interested in, please feel free to call or email me. If you have any questions, thoughts, if you think your community might want to become a CLG, let me know, and we can certainly go about trying to set that up and creating that relationship. So hopefully we'll all be able to see each other again soon. I wish I were looking at all of your faces instead of my computer screen, but we'll get there eventually. And until then, please stay safe, everyone, and let us know if you have any questions.